Our esteemed guests, welcome to the 4th Gastronomy Festival at Cappadocia University with the contributions of Slow Food. We are delighted to host this meaningful event. For today's public seminar, I would like to invite dear Professor Francesco Sottili, Edward Muchibi, and Dr. Tuba Chapar.
Good evening, distinguished guests, colleagues, and members of Slow Food community. It's a great honor to welcome you all to today's seminar, The Importance of Biodiversity and Quality in Food Systems. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself at first. I am Tuba Chapar. I'm a faculty member at Erciyes University in Food Science Department. My research area mainly focused on the encapsulation of bioactive compounds and biodegradable films. And in recent years, I'm mainly focused on the plant-based foods and plant-based diets. So it has some common areas with slow food movement. So I'm very happy to be here. Yes. Agriculture. Professor Sottile has been foundational scientific advisor to Slow Food since its inception. His work offers a vital lens on how ecosystem diversity translates into soil fertility, nutritional richness, and sustainable food production. Next, we are honored to hear from Edward Muchibi, President of Slow Food International, a tropical agronomist and educator. Mr. Muchibi brings lived experience from Ugandan farming communities alongside global leadership in agroecology. Since his transformative involvement in 2008 Terra Medra Gathering, he has accompanied initiatives like the Slow Food Gardens project, demonstrating how agroecological methods restore both biodiversity and human dignity. His leadership continues to inspire a new generation of food activities across continents. In spirit of slow food, where knowledge meets flavor and activism meets pleasure, I invite to engage deeply and engage critically and listen deeply. Please join me in warmly welcoming our first speaker, Professor Francesco Sottile. Thank you.
Less formal, I would stand up and use a few slides just to keep the line of the few arguments I want to talk a little bit with you. I don't want to disturb the. Yesterday we heard so many things with very interesting seminars related to the situation we are facing around the world in terms of biodiversity loss, in terms of climate crisis, in terms of many crises we are facing. And I think that what we should underline is that the crises we are talking about are not confined in political borders. So we need to take into account to face with these problems altogether, not within our political boundary, our state, but we need to face internationally speaking and with a global approach. Surely, I want to show you some evidences of the actual situation worldwide in terms of CO2 concentration in the atmosphere and the consequences that we are living today in our countries, mostly in our rural areas. As you see, the increase is now accounted more than 50% respect to 30, 40 years ago. And this is an incredible increase. But not just CO2, we have many gases representing the most important part of the atmosphere that are living the same condition and the same increase. So all these aspects are contributing to the heating of the temperature, to a higher temperature we are facing, and the consequences that we are having in the soil and in the water management. And it's quite diffuse, the idea that there is a loss of biodiversity since many, many years ago, progressive loss of biodiversity. And many scientific studies now are able to evidence how we can face this problem and try to collect, to get a different behavior in the next century, or just mitigate the situation, or if we don't take into account, probably lose all the resilience in our planet. We know why biodiversity is important for many, many aspects. I don't want to repeat. We know that we lost the opportunity to counteract the biodiversity erosion by 2010, and we lost the opportunity to do that worldwide during the decade on biodiversity between 2011 and 2020. And we know that these conditions were also evidenced during the International Year on Family Farming, just underlining, in order to underline how family farming is important in terms of biodiversity preservation, in terms of cultural diversity preservation, in terms of landscape preservation, and also traditional and heritage conservation. So we are now in the decade of the family farming that will end in 2028, and we are living many of these events now in order to underline more and more this important aspect. And we know that all these problems related to the climate crisis are strongly connected with the soil. 10 years ago was the International Year of Soils. And since that date, we had the International Decade of Soils, because it is clear that the soil is the most important part of the planet, where we are through the soil we are able to produce food, we are able to have water for our daily consumption. Soil is the main focus of the life. So taking care of the soil means taking care of our future. But we know that there are many factors affecting soil fertility. So I don't want to go inside each of these factors because are really common. But besides, we know very well these aspects and all this behavior. We are facing now with the most wider desertification in the world. 70% of the arable soil in the world are under desertification. And the desertification is not due to drought. Desertification is due to a bad way to make agriculture, is due to conventional agriculture, industrial agriculture. So an agricultural model that is not sustainable. If we are talking about soil, we cannot talk about, we cannot exclude water. The water stress in the world is amazing. The drinkable water is finishing. And although all the planet is mostly composed by water, the water is finishing, and we need to take care about that. We are facing a severe drought around the world, in many, many places of the world. This aspect probably will be the most important challenge for the coming years. Temperature is increasing. We have every year we have a limit. We go over the limit we reached the year before. So we have a lot of this kind of evidences. And we know that most part of this problem comes from agriculture, from the conventional and industrial agriculture. So the scientific evidence demonstrates that the food production is still increasing year by year. The population is not requiring so much production from the industrial agriculture, and there is a lot of waste in terms of food. The food waste is reaching an amazing amount, an amazing level. So on a parallel way, if we see the behavior of the production of the chemicals in the world, we see that the increase of the production is justified from the increase of usage in the field of the industrial agriculture. And this is the main cause of the desertification of the soil, desertification. Monoculture is widely diffused. Soil, the machinery, the usage of machinery is depleting the soil structure and fertility, and the intensive way to produce is widely diffused and determines a poor quality of the soil, because the soil is particularly under pressure from chemicals and use of water. Also, we have the animal farming, industrial animal farming. This is a picture of the pollution from animal farming in north of Italy, the soil pollution. So this is the evidence that the soil is under pressure from the waste of the intensified animal farmings. Deforestation is doing the same, is determining the same effects. And so since more or less 20 years ago, also FAO said, well, the Green Revolution demonstrated to be not only not able to solve the problem around the world, but the Green Revolution was the cause of the most important problems that we have in the world. So in terms of deterioration of the land, contamination of water, and loss of biodiversity. So biodiversity appears an important tool in order to mitigate this trend. And we know today that on the total of the edible plants that we have in the world, just 168 are important crops, and between 168 crops, just 9 are the most important for nutrition. And we know also, since an important report, joint report between IPBES and IPCC So Biodiversity International Intergovernmental Panel and Climate Change Intergovernmental Panel, they published in 2020 a joint paper, a joint report demonstrating that climate and biodiversity are inextricably connected with each other. So biodiversity is scientifically proved as the way, as the tool in order to mitigate and compensate climate change. And there are a lot of information. I suggest to read this report because there are a lot of information I don't want to go through for not consuming too much time, but there are the evidence, scientific evidences that biodiversity is able to give benefit to a good quality of life, and also for adaptation and mitigation to climate change. While climate change and the extreme approach to good quality of life can affect biodiversity. So this is important because this is related to the quality of our life. This is related to the quality of the food we consume every day. What happened to food quality in this framework? Since the Green Revolution, food quality changed completely its approach. The genetic environment, the genetic improvement approach from the genetist has been taking care about taste, nutritional aspect, nutraceutical aspect, the appearance. So they focused on some specific goal, choosing parents that usually are the same, always the same. They just made so many crosses. They obtained different varieties, but mostly really similar each other. We had the approach to the hybrids and the loss of seed sovereignty from the small growers. And this approach depleted the conservation of biodiversity. So the Green Revolution, starting from the seed revolution in terms of hybrids selection, in terms of choosing then in some countries also for GMOs and MBTs, they determined from one side the loss of biodiversity and cultural diversity and the approach from the community, the rural communities, and in some other way, the more water and soil consumption and the loss of cultural identities. If we take as a sample tomatoes, tomatoes has been used for many genetic transformation and improvements, but for what? Just for an industrial approach to the cultivation, in the greenhouses, many cases without soils, many cases very similar varieties, not so tasty, but highly productive. So the goal is not the food and the quality of the food we are consuming, but the goal is just the maximum profit for the companies who are producing the seeds and who are producing the fruits. So it's something that is changing, completely changing the sustainable food system approach. And also changing the way to consume. Up to 50, 60 years ago, tomato was a seasonal product, a seasonal vegetable. Today is amazing to think about tomatoes as a seasonal product. We found tomatoes all year around. But in our approach, and when I say our approach, I'm talking about slow food approach, we are strongly connected to the seasonality. So we are preserving the biodiversity. We are preserving the link to the traditional use, a traditional way to produce, in order to avoid the loss of biodiversity, the erosion of biodiversity, but also in order to preserve the link with the heritage of the communities and the territories. So this is an example of a slow food presidium in my region, where we are preserving tomato varieties, recovering land between the greenhouses in an area where the greenhouses determined the desertification of the production due to chemicals, due to overuse of the soil. So we need to think that the soil is full of microorganisms as our body. And the soil is full of microorganisms which are important for the fertility, which are important for many ecological approach. Think about the CO2 sequestration from the atmosphere and sequestration in the soil. So quality starts from the soil and goes through the biodiversity in order to reach our body. It's something that we cannot relate just to the products or to some specific variety. For us, it is a systemic approach. A systemic approach that means that community are strongly involved in cultivating a product in order to valorize the resilience of a territory and to give a future to the territory and to the future generations. So we need to see, to watch at the quality as a systemic view in terms of taste, but also in terms of ecology, in terms of social development. And just to conclude, in terms of quality, these are a few images of cheeses. Cheese is milk. Ingredients are milk, salt, and rennet. Just 3 ingredients. But with these 3 ingredients, we can have thousands of cheeses around the world. Just 3 ingredients that can be, if you see the label of a cheese, you find just these 3 ingredients, equal for all the cheeses. But if you put in the narrative approach also the territory where the animals have been farmed, what the animals have eaten in the farm, which breed we are farming, the hands of the community who milk the animals and produce cheese, the tradition of the community to preserve those cheeses. At the end, we have several hundred of cheeses, different, starting from the same 3 ingredients. So we will have different quality, different ability to preserve traditions and biodiversity, starting from the same product. So we can reach this result only if we are able to valorize territory, community approach, and the products. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Satile. Is there any question for this presentation? Okay. I'm wondering how can we treat this soil to increase the fertility, or what would be your advice to the farmers to increase the biodiversity?
Well, surely the model, the agricultural model they adopt is absolutely important. Crop rotation, the use of avoiding to maintain the soil without any crop. The agroforestry approach in terms of presence of production, fruit or vegetables production, but also animal farming, in order to valorize the presence of the vegetative production and the animal farming, but also the natural fertilization, avoiding any use of chemicals, mostly in terms of herbicides. Well, let me make a comment. Today there is a strong discussion in terms of how important is regenerative agriculture. It's important to talk about regeneration, soil regeneration, when the soil has been misused by industrial agriculture. But we cannot look just at the soil, not taking care about what is cultivated in which with which model we are cultivating. We cannot use herbicides in order to avoid to use machine, just to avoid to touch the soil. We need to watch at the system with a complex approach, because it's something living. It's not something to build to realize as a building. It's something living, and this ecosystem. So if we want to valorize the ecosystem services that the soil is able to provide to all the living beings, not just to the humans, all the living beings, we need to preserve its fertility, but also its capacity to drain water, to produce water, and to guarantee the ability to produce food.
Thank you so much. Yes, please.
I don't think so, because we are not suggesting to avoid to consume meat. We are saying that we need to consume the meat with the proper quality. So we need to consume less meat, because in Europe there is we consume on average 80 kilos per capita per year. So we need to consume less and less meat, and if we consume less meat, that meat can be provided by the sustainable farming, animal farming system. So we don't need the industrial farming system, but to solve the problem, we don't need to be vegan, because this is a choice, not the solution, in my opinion.
Next, we are honored to hear from Edward Muchibi. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually wanted to, Professor Sottile has been scientific in his presentation. I am also from the science background, but I want to go a little bit philosophical and also a little bit practical, more practical also as a farmer. He ended his presentation, or the answer he gave, one of the answers he gave to your question, by saying soil is a living system. It's true, like our bodies. Soil is designed to function like our body. Soil gets sick, it dies. So many times when we think of the industrial food systems, don't think in this direction. They think it's just a resource, a non-living resource to exploit. But soils Soil is a living thing. It's a living organism. It's a living system. It's a complex system that hosts 25% of all the life on the planet. More than 25%. More than a quarter of all the biodiversity we can find on the planet lives in the soil. So it's a very complex system. It's one of the most important food environments that we need to take care of. Food environments, I mean the ecosystem where food is grown, the markets where we buy the food, the kitchens. These are some of the food environments. But soil is one of the most important food environments. And the health of this food environment determines the health of the entire food value chain. You cannot have good, clean, and fair food. You cannot have healthy food on the plate, be it animal products, be it fish, be it plant products, if the soils are not healthy. So every soil determines, it's the first determinant of food health, of a healthy diet. It starts with the soil. If there is, in my days at the university, I got involved in a research on bioremediation of heavy metals from tropical soils. And you find that in places close to mines, there are many people who want to grow vegetables and sell vegetables in the markets, where people who are working in the mine business buy fresh food. But you realize that a lot of food grown close to mines had very, very high levels of cadmium and other heavy metals like lead. This is not healthy. They are fresh vegetables, they are grown without chemicals, but in the end, there is a high percentage of bioaccumulation of these heavy metals. And the problem starts with the contaminated soils. So this is why, if we are to talk about healthy food, if we are to talk about good, clean, and fair food, it's very important that we pay a lot of attention to the health of the soil, to the health of this system that hosts most of the biodiversity on the planet. And also, another thing is that many times we have a saying that these are poor quality soils. When, like I said, soils function as a human body, it's a healthy, or it's a living system. When humans suffer from a sickness, we don't say they are poor quality humans. We say they are sick. So we need to treat them. We need to take care of them. We need to give them good health care to recover from that sickness. What we call the industrial agriculture, the non-agroecological approaches to agriculture, what they call poor quality soils, they are actually sick soils which need recovery, which need taking care of this soil to recover and regain its full health. And it's the agroecological, doctor here asked about maintaining soil fertility. Ecological maintenance of soil fertility is one way we can recover. It's one approach we can use to recover the soil to regain its good health. So it's not entirely poor quality soils, because poor quality soils are actually created in that state. The mineralization process and also the weathering and the process of creating the soil is they are naturally created as poor quality soils. But soils where the industrial agriculture and monocultures have exploited and degraded the soils, they're actually not poor quality soils. They were once high quality, fertile soils, but the human actions have created this notion of poor quality. These are sick soils, or if we don't take care of these soils, the situation even gets worse. So that's why we need agroecological approaches to take care of the soil, to change that state. And once these soils recover from this state of sickness, it's very important that we avoid practices that will take them back to the same state, because recovery may not be possible. So this is a little bit philosophical, but it has a lot of scientific backing behind it, because it's not enough to classify soils as which were once productive and destroyed by industrial production systems. It's not enough to classify them as poor quality soils. We have to face the reality and say these soils have been exploited and drugged, and now they are sick. So we need to recover these soils. Soil suffers ill health, like we humans, like animal and plant systems. But also soils suffer addiction to drugs. Scientifically, when soils need recovery, they need a whole system recovery. They do not need just addition of nutrients. They do not need just addition of one single component, and we say that we are improving soil fertility. Soil fertility is beyond just addition of nutrients to the soil. So any product that only adds nutrients to the soil is not actually part of soil fertility. It's a very small component of soil fertility. And many times when soils become sick and we only think about giving them drugs to continue operating, to continue producing, we're actually creating that addiction. Francesco mentioned about using herbicides. Herbicides and other chemical fertilizers, they are part of these drugs that make the soil extremely addicted to this production system. I come from the tropics. The tropical soil system is the most complex because we don't have a time for the soil to rest from the mineralization process. It's warm throughout the year, high temperatures, high humidity. So the soils are actually, the organic matter is working throughout the year. There is no time like winter to rest. So these soils, the moment you start adding chemicals, they become extremely dependent on the chemicals. And the moment you stop adding chemicals, they will not produce anything because they are addicted. Just like a person who suffers addiction, if the body is working on drugs, the moment they stop taking drugs abruptly, their body starts to deteriorate and their functionality starts to reduce. So we need to understand this when we are dealing with soils, when we are dealing with a healthy soil system. When we leave the soils to lose its organic ecological health, we are actually putting our health as humans at risk. The whole ecosystem becomes problematic. The water bodies, they will be polluted from the land with highly polluted soils. The crops will take up the pollutants. The animals will eat pastures or ingredients which are full of pollutants. The entire food system will be a mess. So this is why we need to take care of soils if we need to have a good, clean, and fair, or if we need to have a healthy food system. Everything else will fall in place as long as we pay a lot of attention to the health of the soil system, because that's where biodiversity starts. The species that grow, terrestrial species, everything that thrives as part of biodiversity has its roots in the soil. So this is the most important component, and we need to take a very, very, very good care of this system. It's a living system, and we have to acknowledge that. It's not a building like what Francesco said. It's a whole living system, and it's our responsibility to take care of this soil system. And then another issue is now on biodiversity. I now love saying that we do not only lose, we always discuss this with Francesco, we do not only lose biodiversity. If you have this pen and you lose it, it's not intentional, or it may be out of forgetting, or it's not your own making to lose this pen. Maybe you were a bit careless at one point. But then when you have this pen and you just break it up and you throw it away, it's different from losing the pen. You've destroyed the pen. The biodiversity, the state of biodiversity today it has gone beyond just losing biodiversity. We are actually intentional as humans. Our actions are destroying biodiversity. Saying that we are losing biodiversity, only that, without saying that we are losing biodiversity because we are destroying it, that takes away responsibility from humans, from human action. So we have always to emphasize those 2 points. You have to understand that it's not only about losing biodiversity. We are accountable. We are destroying biodiversity, and we should take that accountability. We should take the accountability of the destruction. That is why everything we do in producing food or handling food, in taking care of our daily life, it has to be intentional. It should be intentional to recover biodiversity. It should be intentional to take on the agroecological approach to food production and food systems governance. It should be intentional to take a good care of soil, not only to regenerate the soil, but to agroecologically manage the soil, to apply agroecological principles and practices to the management and governance and caring for the soil. It should be intentional to increase biodiversity on our plates when we are having meals. Look around, we should look around in our territories. We should recover the knowledge and recover the species, not only in the landscape, but also in the plates, in the kitchens, in everything that we do. That is part of intentional care for biodiversity. So everything has to be intentional because it's our actions that are actually destroying biodiversity.
Thank you, Muchibi. Is there any questions? Okay, I would like to ask, or I am wondering if you have a soil and it's addicted, what would you do? Because you are growing in a farming family, and what would you do? How do you protect the soil, or how do you treat the soil?
I have a very live experience on our farm. Part of our family farm, even the plot I'm still struggling with, was once used as a trial ground for the nearby research station, agriculture research station. We share the boundary with an agriculture research center. So this part of this land was being used as a trial ground where they determine the fertilizer in application rates or chemical application rates on new crops, temperate crops, until it became less and less productive, that even with the addition of chemical fertilizers, the production was going down. The soil had reached the point of satiety. So just like humans, when we take in too much, we reach a point we cannot take in anymore. So this place became abandoned. And many people, it was advertised as a residential place because farming was not viable anymore. But it was a bit cheaper to acquire, to add to the farm. So I put my knowledge to a test to recover the soil from addiction. And it's not only working on specific practices, it's a whole rehabilitation process. You have to understand that you are now taking care of a living system that needs care, that needs attention, that needs everyday engagement to recover that soil, to rehabilitate the soil, because it was abused, it was dragged, it was, a lot of things happened to this soil. Life are the millions or billions or trillions of organisms that once had made that soil home. So soil, very viable soil, through practices like microorganism rich, Then we thought about the chemistry, trying to check the pH, what is the pH level, what is the acidity level, and then also we start working around agroecological practices like also composting, like production of bokashi, and also production of biochar, like components from within the farm that can recover the soil from acidity to a better pH. So these are some of the things that we have done, but it takes some time. You have to be patient because it's not something that you can treat overnight. It's not something you can treat in one season. It's not something that you will do for quick results. It's something you're doing for the future, for a long time. It takes time, but also the impact of recovery is very, very long. You can tell also from the crops that grow there, even without adding more soil fertility components like compost, like manure, like biochar, the soil remains productive for so long. But also looking at recreating a natural system, agroforestry, creating trees, crops which are think that it's a living need type of recovery. Understand what they are doing. The practice, the principle is the one we are doing, what we are doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed guests, as we draw this enriching all of us to our distinguished speakers, Professor Francesco Sottile and Edward Mucibi. And thank you for all being part of this global dialogue.